Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel where today I want to start a series of videos in which I provide wargaming with my carefully thought out feedback. The first thing I want to talk about in this series, well this video, I want to discuss crews and their skills. And the first thing I'm going to bring your attention to is the way things used to be. What we used to have from a crew and skill point of view in this game. Back in the day, we had crews, obviously, like we do now, but they were locked to nations. And as far as I can remember, there was no way to transition a crew from one nation to another. Or if there was, it was so expensive that I never did it. We also had access to 25 crew skills, and there was no limit to how many one crew could have. The result was a grind that far exceeded any tech tree tank line grind. And that was the content that kept veteran players playing the game. People that owned every single tech tree tank still had thousands of games to play in order to max out as many nation crews as they possibly could. And I remember being very proud of my highest crew tank, my highest skill crew tank. I'm getting that wrong, aren't I? I was very proud of my highest skill crew. That's what I'm trying to say. There we go. I believe my highest was 14. I think my best crew was for Russian heavies, and it had 14 skills. And the reason I was proud of that crew was because I worked so hard to earn them. The system that we had meant that if you wanted to grind a particular crew, you had to play the tanks assigned to that crew's nation. It meant that you had to learn that nation and its vehicles. You couldn't just play the same crew trainer over and over again and slap that crew into any nation you wanted. You had to play that specific nation, and the result was you'd wake up in the morning or you'd get off work or whatever it was, and you'd sit down and you think, okay, am I in the mood for Russian heavies today? Am I in the mood for Swedish TDs? Am I in the mood for German lights? We had a rigid system that meant each crew became personalized to that particular nation. And not even that nation. Some crews became so personalized that they went in a specific tank at a specific tier. We had to be very careful and precise about what skills we put on our crews. And we had to understand the tanks. We couldn't just slap any old generic super skill on. We had to understand what skills our crews needed for particular tanks. We also had the option to buy crews that came with unique skills. The skill Iron Mace, which we still have in the game now, is a very good example. You could only get that skill with the purchase of the tier 5 Bogatyr Russian, that's a Russian heavy at tier 5. Now, if you want to, you can put that skill on any crew if you want. We had uniqueness, and we had an extraordinary depth to our crews, and some might say they had a personal attachment to their crews. I know that some veterans of the game I've spoken to that quit a long time ago said, I had a personal attachment to that crew. They were with me since day one of playing the game. I made them the way I wanted them to be. They fitted that tank perfectly. And then the crew update came along, and with it, all depth was stripped out of the crew system, and it was replaced with triteness. Anyone with a half-decent crew prior to the update was handed a 9-skill crew for free, and told things like, oh, this is great, you know, the skills are amazing, they're so much better, and, you know, so on and so on. Well, I didn't have the self-awareness at the time of the original update to know what I really thought about this. But my truth was, and still is, I didn't want Wargaming to hand me these maxed out crews. I don't think anybody wanted these crew changes. And in one update, Wargaming took away the depth and character from all of our crews. They took away one of the core features that kept veterans playing the game. And what we now have is a bland, shallow system that makes the whole thing easier. It is so easy, in fact, that you can, in theory, play the entirety of all Cold War tech trees with as little as 8 crews. You need 3 for Western, 3 for Eastern, and 2 for Independent. You can crew 107 tanks with only 8 crews. Now, I know why Wargaming did this, and I know that these decisions were made by old leadership. They wanted to make the whole crew experience more accessible. But in doing so, they made it so dull that once you have a couple of maxed out crews, and you realize that you can play a huge variety of tanks with them, the incentive to grind unique crews just disappears. The incentive to get to grips with a particular light tank and learn what it's good at, what it's not good at, tailor a crew to make that tank play just that little bit better for you, it's gone. And the same thing applies to mediums, heavies. The incentive to play them and get to grips with them has gone. Now, I've heard all the arguments from the current for the current crew system. Skills are more effective, they're easier to earn now, and so on. That might all be true, but that is short-sighted thinking in my opinion. I'd rather have the option to earn my 25 skills that are 50% less effective than be limited to 9 super skills and be told that that's it. You can't have any more. I want the sandbox back. The difficulty in earning skills also meant that I had to be super careful about what skills I chose to have. I remember long conversations with my buddies, just sitting in the garage, looking at the skills, looking at my crews, and we would talk about things like what skills work best for them, and trying to work out what direction would be best for me, going back and forth about skill bonuses, and this skill does this, and that skill will do that for you, and I had to research what was best for my tank and my playstyle. I cared about what skills I chose because they were so difficult to obtain. I cared a lot about my crews, and that meant I cared about the game and my place within its community. I personally don't think Wargaming fully understands just how much the community feels about these changes, or these historic changes to the game. Not only that, I want to impress on Wargaming the long-lasting impact it has had on the game and its veterans. The crew system changes alone, that update, that change, that was a machete to the garden of game depth, personality, and character. Now, I don't want to make this all sound like doom and gloom, and I know that Wargaming doesn't like to think about or really talk about the 6.0 period in the game, or the months prior to that, or the months after that, but I do want to impress on Wargaming the real depth of anguish myself and other veterans feel. I do not feel this level of unhappiness and heartache to an extent out of dramatics. I and many others feel this way because we know what the old game was. We know what the old game was like to play, and at its core, it was very, very good. I am not asking for the game to go back to the way it was. What I'm asking for is Wargaming to assess the foundations of the old game, look at why it was so popular, find out why the veterans played it as long as they did, and ask those of us that were there what we really liked and what we feel is missing now. Take that feedback from us, we'll give it to you, and take it seriously. Please do take it seriously and build on it. There are many surface aspects of the game right now that are good. I can't slate the game as it is right now entirely. This is not, to all intents and purposes, it's not a terrible game. But I do feel that it is not the gem that it used to be. Tank models and 3D skins, for the most part, they are top quality, which is great. That is absolutely fantastic. The problem is that the foundation on which these tanks rest has gotten progressively worse with time. I and many other veterans of the game have been patient, but for some people, their patience has run out. I know there's new creative leadership at Wargaming, which means that, in a way, there is a fresh start at Wargaming, the head of the design center. We have a fresh slate on which to work with, and with this fresh slate, I want to say that we need some foundational quality of life changes, and soon. Wargaming, This game has known greatness. This isn't a new thing for you. We're not asking for you to do things that you've never done before. We're simply asking for you to undo some of the things that 6.0 broke. I know you guys want to improve the game, and we, the veterans of the game, your golden cohort, have a good sense of what is currently missing, and I know you'll hear this, and I hope that you can provide us with the opportunity to have many more constructive conversations around how to improve the game at its core. Okay folks, that is all I've got for this one. If you've enjoyed this video, please leave it a like, if not a dislike, subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll catch you in the next one.